Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is Abyss 1232 here. Hope everyone's doing pretty well here. As you can see, I have my CZ97B out for us today. It's pretty brand new for me, unmolested, haven't modified it yet, and only shot a few hundred rounds through it. You can also see I got a labeled out couple few hammer springs for us, and the reason why is this is a new firearm for me, but not new to CZ, but a lot of people might be, and I get a lot of questions about, you know, what's the first modification they should do to their firearm. You know, what's the best thing they could do for it? What are the easiest modifications? You know, if I were to do one thing to the firearm, what's a must-have that I would change? Some of the biggest differences that I could do to the pistol for the smallest amount of money. A lot of it goes to your use of the firearm, obviously, but you know, easiest things are going to be swapping out your grips. That's just a screw. That's going to change the feel of it and the look of it. You could easily change out your recoil spring. Again, if you're shooting different kinds of ammunition, reloading your own, you can always adjust your recoil spring accordingly. That's fairly inexpensive and really easy to do as well. You could always change out your sights. This one came with a fiber optic front. I've installed fiber optics as far as my front sight on all my CZs. So for me, that's a must-have, but again, it depends on what you're using the pistol for. I'm not using those pistols for defensive situations. I mean, I could, just their primary use are not for home defense. That's why I have a shotgun. Either way, so the next step here is what I believe is going to be make the biggest difference, least amount of money, is going to be your hammer spring. So we're going to go over what happens when you install some of these, well, all of these hammer springs, and you know, what happens internally, what modifications do you need to do internally in order to have these on your pistol, because you can't just pop in an 8.5 pound hammer spring to lighten out your trigger pull and expect everything to be okay. They all have their own purpose. They all have their own philosophy of use. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So first, I want to show you guys how to change out your hammer spring. Hopefully we can do this pretty quickly, but you're going to take whatever tool you need to remove your current grips. So on both sides, go ahead and remove the grips. That's pretty easy. And what you have here is your hammer plug. That's going to be held in with your pin. You're going to need a 3/32 punch and a flat surface. I wouldn't recommend using one of these little mats that I have, because you're not going to get enough pressure on that. So go ahead and push your pin out. What happens is that hammer plug is actually being held in by this magazine brake. So give it some pressure again. All you got to do is push that forward, and that will allow your hammer plug to come out. That'll be your hammer spring. Now, just for the sake of this video, I'm actually going to remove the magazine brake. You don't need to change out your hammer spring, but again, that's just for the sake of the video, because I'm going to be changing it out at least 4 times, and I'm also going to be using my SP01 with the lanyard loop, because this flat plug just need a lot more pressure to do it, and should make this video a lot shorter. So move that pin, All you need is a 1/16 punch, and actually you should be able to just push that through. You probably don't even need a hammer. I'm gonna put that aside. That's your magazine brake. So this is your stock hammer spring, and the reason they go so heavy, again, it ranges from about 18 to 20 pounds depending on the firearm, is that they want to get the most reliability out of this pistol or any CZ75. They want to be able to fire all types of ammunition from plus B plus to target loads, 115 grain, 124 grain, 147, and all obviously those hand loads. They got hollow points, defensive loads, yada yada. And with a stock spring, you're probably going to get the best reliability out of the stock spring. Again, only reason you're going to want to change that is, one, to lighten your trigger pull weight. Two, if you're strictly using it for certain situations. So what I have here is 3 different weighted hammer springs. Now the one I don't have, which I guess technically would go here, is a 15-pound hammer spring. Now with the 15-pound hammer spring, you can install it and it'll work. It is the lightest hammer spring that'll work with your stock internals. Stock internals meaning your stock sized firing pin and firing pin spring. Now it's in the slide. Okay, that's kept in the slide with that pin right there. Check out some of the other videos, you can go ahead and see how to remove that. So with your 15-pound hammer spring, which is technically be right here, you're going to have great reliability with it for various types of ammo, and you're going to be able to lighten your trigger pull. Now, one thing I forgot to do was get the stock rating with the stock spring, so let me install that back in. We'll go ahead and get that base weight. Okay, so the stock hammer spring is in, and I have my trusty Timney trigger pull gauge. We're going to get a base trigger pull with that. So right there, hopefully you can see I'm a little bit above 10, about 10 and a half actually. Again, about 10 and a half. And final pull, hopefully you guys can see that, you're at about 10 and a half. Again, so those are 3 pretty consistent trigger pulls. They're all going to be rated about 10 and a half. This is your stock hammer spring. Now in single action, let's see if I can get that to come in. That's about 5 pounds. Again, I do about 3 pulls. Again, about 5 pounds. And last one is going to be about 5 pounds. So on your stock 18 to 20 pound hammer spring, I believe this is a 20, you're going to have a 10 and a half to 11. It started out at 11. I worked it in a little bit, a lot of dry firing, and it's down to about 10, consistent 10 and a half. And then your double action is at about a consistent, or your single action is at a consistent 5 pounds. So now you know how to remove it. I'm going to go ahead and put you guys on pause again for the sake of the length of this video, and we're going to go ahead and install our 13-pound hammer spring. Alright, so as you can see, this is the blue 13-pound hammer spring. Go ahead and get a double action pull weight. and it's a little bit, it's about 9 pounds. So a little less than 9 pounds again. And it's a little bit over 9 pounds. So average on that is going to be about 9 pounds in the double action. Single action is going to bring us to about 4 pounds. And I'm going to go ahead and just leave it at that. I'm going to do one trigger pull for every spring, again, for the length of this video. But it should be pretty consistent with what I've pulled up here as previous results. So the single action on the 13-pound hammer spring is going to be about 4 pounds. Now when you install the 13-pound, sorry, camera's getting kind of loose there. When you install the 13-pound hammer spring, you can no longer have your stock internals. You're at least going to have to install a reduced pressure or reduced power firing pin spring. You can keep your stock length firing pin, but you need to reduce the weight on the spring, so that way when your hammer comes down, you don't get light strikes. So again, I'm going to put you on pause. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next hammer spring. Alright, so as you can see, I have my 11.5 pound black hammer spring installed. Let's go get hit and get the double action pull weight. So as you can see, it's about a little under 7 pounds. That's pretty consistent with what I got as far as my results went. And on single action, again, you're getting a little bit under 4, but on average I got about 4 pounds on the single action with the 11.5 pound black hammer spring. Now when you install the 11.5 pound hammer spring, you have to have your reduced pressure, reduced power firing pin spring, and then you also have to install your extended firing pin. So if you do the 11.5 pound, you have to make those two modifications to the firearm. So you have to purchase those from either Cajun Gun Works or czcustom.com. So I'm going to go ahead and change this out. So went ahead and got our 8.5 pound white hammer spring. We're going to go ahead and get our double action pull. And what we come up with is about 5 pounds, a little over 5 pounds in the double action. And in the single action, whoa, that's a little high, but let's try that one more time. Actually, I don't know why it was so high. Alright, I think I might have had it in the wrong spot, but that's a 3.5 pound single action with your 8.5 pound hammer spring. Oops. So just to recap here, with your stock hammer spring, you're going to be at about 10.5, 11 pounds in your double action. In your single action, you're going to be around 5 pounds. You can leave everything as is, shoot it as is. Then you have your 15 pound hammer spring. It's going to bring you down to about 10 pounds in the double action, about 4.5 in the single action. And again, you can leave all of your stock internals. And you have your 13 pound hammer spring, your blue hammer spring. These are all from Cajun Gun Works, by the way. Your blue hammer spring, it's going to bring you down to a 9 pound double action and a 4 pound single action. You're an 11.5 pound black spring, going to bring you down to a 7-pound double action, and about a 4-pound, doesn't change much in the single action. Now on your 8.5-pound spring, which is white, installed in the pistol right now, you're going to be at about 5 pounds, a little over 5 pounds in the double action. Should be about 5 1/4, and 3.5 pounds in the single action. So the biggest difference your hammer spring is going to make is your double action pull. Now if you go down to this 8.5 white hammer spring, you are going to need your reduced power firing pin spring, your extended firing pin, and you're only going to be limited to Federal primers. So whether you reload them yourself or you buy factory ammunition, you can only buy Federal ammunition or American Eagle. Now I've tested all these out pretty extensively, and I find it pretty true that your 8.5 pound hammer spring is only going to be able to ignite Federal primers reliably with your extended firing pin and reduced power firing pin spring. So you're an 11.5 pound, it's going to be more reliable with your extended firing pin. You're going to be able to shoot different kinds of factory ammo, different kinds of primers, and you're going to benefit with a lower double action pull, because your single action from here to here, 11.5 to 13 pounds, is not much different in a stock formation. Neither is it in a modified format, but in a stock format, between here to here, not much different in a single action. You're going to get about 2 pounds difference in the double action though. So you're at 7 pounds here and 9 pounds in your 13-pound hammer spring. And the reason I didn't get the 15-pound hammer spring is because Cajun Gun Works actually sells most of their kits with the 13-pound hammer spring. And what they offer is, for $17, you're going to get what's called, well, I don't know what it's called, but it's one of their packages, their spring packages. You get a 13-pound hammer spring, you get a reduced power firing pin spring, and you get a reduced power firing pin block spring. So with those 3 springs for $17, part number on that is SPGK1. You're going to get an incredibly light, compared to your stock trigger, trigger pull weight. So for $17, you're going to change your double action to about a 9 pounds versus 10.5 or 11. Now for another $7, like I said, since this is only $7, you can get part number, what is HS12000. It's an 11.5 pound CZ hammer spring from Cajun Gun Works. Again, that's the black one. That's going to bring you down to a 7-pound double action pull, and you're already going to be pretty low at 4 pounds in the single action. So overall, like I was saying before, your hammer spring is primarily going to affect your double action pull. Now once you start lowering your double action pull, again, you're going to affect your reliability and types of ammo you're going to be able to shoot out of your firearm. And this is a 97, so I'm shooting 45 ACP, but similarly on a 75 series, 75B, it's going to bring you down in the same ammo requirements, same primer sensitivities in your 8.5, and really your most reliable are going to be your 13 pound and your 11.5 pound. Just depends on, again, if you go to your 11.5 pound, even though you're going to have to install your extended firing pin, if you use really hard primers, you're probably going to get some light strikes, as I did. I experienced a couple light strikes with really hard primers, but that's like super cheap ammo. But your 13 pound hammer spring is going to be most reliable, best effect on your double action pull. And again, most of the kits you get from Cajun Gun Works are going to include your 13 pound hammer spring, blue hammer spring. So guys, if you want a little recap, I did actually write it down. Hopefully it comes out here. Hopefully you can read my terrible handwriting. But that's a stock. This is an unmodified, untouched pistol. Your stock hammer spring, it's going to be a little less, or about 5 pounds. So you're only getting about 1.5 pounds difference here in your single action. But your biggest difference here is, look at that. Let's just say that's 10.5. You're getting about half of the weight on your double action pull. Now, just as a comparison, because again, I got a lot of questions on my other pistol. I installed the same springs on my modified CZ75 SP01 Tactical that you've seen in other videos, with extensive work, polish work, pins, springs, everything possible you can get from Cajun Gun Works and CZ Custom. Modify that thing, other than removing the firing pin block. Your single action is hardly affected. So well, to me it's a fully modified SP01 Tactical. You start out at 2 3/4 single action, 2.5, 2.5 to a little bit less. So you're not getting much difference in your single action from your hammer spring once you modify the internals. Now what you are getting is, look at this weight on your double action pull. That's a consistent 4 3/4 double action pull from the decock position. That's what these DC stand for. From the decock position, look how low this is getting. 4.5 from the decock position, under 6 pounds from the decock position, 7 pounds. So if you want to even read a little bit more, so from a fully modified, you can see it's pretty consistent. Here you got 11.5. This is 9 and 13. This is 9, 6 3/4, 7 on a stock pistol, 4 3/4 on a modified, 5 1/4 on a stock pistol. Your decocks are all going to be lower, of course. And then your single action, this is just untouchable right here. There's no way you're going to get 2.5, less than 2.5 pounds on a stock single action pull without modifying the internals. But again, that's some knowledge for you guys, first time users, first time buyers, first time modifiers. Hope that helped out. Sorry this video went a little long, but there's benefits to all the hammer springs. It just depends on what you're using the pistol for, what ammunition you're using, and what your desired weight on the trigger is. So again, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all the comments. I got a lot more videos to come. And shoot straight and shoot safe, guys.